Okay, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call a regular meeting of the Buckhannon City Council to order and ask if you join me in a moment of silent meditation and prayer. Thank you. We'll respect the flag, David. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Don't see any Wesley students.
I think you got just one.
Do we have one?
Mr. Matsumoto is back here.
Oh, okay. We take this time to recognize the students from Wesleyan College. We ask that you stand up and face the camera. Tell us your name, where you're from, what your major is, please.
My name is Shintaro Matsumoto, and my major is accounting, and I'm from Japan.
Welcome.
What part of Japan?
Do you know where Guma is? Guma is
I know the Southern Island, that's where I was.
Welcome. Barry Pritz.
Oh, okay. Who's the other Westfield student?
Yeah, the other Wesleyan student.
Yeah, I'm Barry Pritz.
I want to sleep.
We're going to go into this topic now?
Yes.
Great. Okay, not knowing exactly where to start here, I'm going to pass out an article for you all to take a look at. And actually, this article kind of gives a little overview of the topic that I wanted to bring to the council. It's actually an article that's coming from the American Society of Planning Officials, and it talks about the potential for developing a special use or educational zone within a city, and the use of the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission and the conversation and collaboration that might take place between city and college. First, I want to say that it's important to recognize how close this organization has been as far as the two organizations, the city and the college, and how well we work together. And I applaud you all for the cooperation that you've shown to the college, and I know that we're great partners together. It's interesting that the college continues to grow and expand, and I think you've heard a lot about the good stories of our enrollment and all the people that are coming to college, the employment opportunities, the economic impact that the college has on the area. We've basically been growing in terms of enrollment, number of employees, etc., but we've also been growing in terms of space and the types of uses that go on the college campus. And I guess in effect we could be considered sort of a community within a community. We know, and we all share in these things that happen around. I mean, we have infrastructure that goes through our campus. We have some commercialization kind of concepts that take place with dining services, and we have a post office on campus, we have a convenience store on campus, we have just a variety of different things, all the different things that you kind of have to think about as far as running the city. It's the same kind of things, traffic patterns that we talk about, etc. And we've been largely a residential community at the college. We pretty much insist that anybody who's not within a specific short-range commuting distance has to live on campus for 4 years. That's pretty different than a lot of campuses throughout the country. Now more that we get online, etc. But one of the things that I think that we're doing in a quality way at the college, and I hope you'll agree, and we've actually worked together on a number of these things, is we're much better than we used to be in terms of, and more sophisticated, as you are. And I think Buckhannon is very well recognized as being one of the leaders in sophisticated planning and administration. So the college hopes that you see us in the same way, that we're getting more sophisticated in the way we do things, and we're developing more of an attitude and approach to campus planning. And so we're trying to look at, okay, we're going to have more students. What's that mean? But also, what are the expectations of students? What are the expectations of faculty members and staff that are on our campus? And how can we continue to be great partners with this effort and also great citizens in our communities in this case maybe. One of the things that we've been doing a lot of is campus master planning. And you could look at, we actually have, we had a group from, come in here and really kind of look at our campus with a third eye and look at, traffic patterns, how do people approach the campus from the city. We've talked a lot about that, and I know you all are talking about wayfinding, this whole project that we're into now. It's kind of, community cooperative kind of thing, winds itself right down Main Street, right into the college. And we're trying to look the same. We're talking signage that should be, in commonality, etc. While we're doing this, our college has grown now to, we think, right around 100 acres central. You started out maybe at 40 acres. And that was the central piece between Camden and College Avenue. And then now we have all the ball fields, all the stuff that goes down to intersecting with the city as far as, the recreation areas, etc. We've been trying to come up with a plan for what I would call land acquisition kind of plan and maybe a land use plan. And that's pretty common. And cities, counties, everybody use, what are we going to use these places for and how we're going to develop our community and our physical map and what happens. So I brought along actually the latest on this, and most of you seen. I think most of you seen this already. But if you look at this map or plat, you'll see that the areas that are in orange, kind of almost pinkish, are already college-owned properties. These are college-owned properties. Now we have some others that you'll see that are in yellow, and then you see a whole bunch that are in white. And some of these, we've got some yellows, we've got some blues. We're trying to color code targets for how important properties might be to the institution if they were available to be added to our footprint. So we're trying to develop a footprint. There's a lot of reasons why you'd want to do that, obviously from the standpoint of controlling activity within an area, etc. But anyway, this starts to come back into this article that I handed out. And what happens is we've been designated and have been, and probably appropriately designated basically as a residential zone. And this article talks about in most cities around the country, you'll have designations of residential, industrial, commercial kind of zones. But there's a new wave of things happening, and particularly in certain states, Massachusetts, Illinois, California, some of the more progressive states in particular, they're developing these special use kind of zones. So what I'm going to really, if you read the article, you'll notice that it alludes to the idea of you still have that cooperation between the local city and county planning, but also there's opportunity for, particularly because institutions do planning at a pretty sophisticated level, that the city normally would say, okay, you guys, we understand what you're trying to do. You've got a lot of different things, a lot of different activities are happening on the campus, and you're going to be neighbors to a lot of residential areas, which we are, and you can see that if you look at the peripheral areas here. We're starting to move into, when we came over with the Performing Arts Center, for example, we're across the street, College Avenue, you've got the Parish House there. We have some other things that are going on and will be going on as far as future development and things like that. And some of this is kind of far out planning, just like you guys are going down out into the distance on when this is going to happen. I think now is the time for us to consider trying to get together, if we could, maybe a joint committee of city and college people to talk about the potential for an educational or institutional or some other type of special use zone for the college, designated for the college. There's a lot that goes into this conversation. I'm not going to try to even cover it all, but it's the idea of a special designation for zoning for the college because it's a special use kind of thing. We realize we're part of the city, want to be part of the city, partners with you, and we think that this would give us some flexibility in things going down the road. It also, we've talked about things like Meade Street Extension. We've talked about different ways to access areas that we cohabitate and all that. And I want that to go into the conversation. But I want to try to, if we can, get to a point where the college can designate a certain footprint as being where we are. Now, realizing that we don't own everything that we're talking about owning, and that's going to be, a little bit of a. There's another group that there's this is urban planning, urban planner group, and it's called Cyburbia, and it's a sort of blog that urban planners get on and talk about. If you've seen this or not, but they're talking about the idea of even overlay maps, where you could take the map of the college and you could take the zones of the city, and there could be areas where you're sort of, in the event someday this may become educational purpose or special use. It's not yet, and then we could designate how we treat that in terms of development, potential, building sites, and we'd still be part of the city, and from the standpoint of building permits and parking and a variety of different things would still stay pretty close to where they are now. But I'd like for us to consider, if you would, designating a group of people to talk about it.
If I may comment just briefly, of course, the vast majority of the college campus now is in R2 zone, which permits colleges and fraternities and all those kinds of things. I will say over the years, I think this makes a lot of sense. I also might note that we're in the process of putting together a required master plan for the city. It would be very helpful to get some of this accomplished in the next 6 months or so that we could include that as part of our master plan, which is due to be filed to the state. The only, in all the years I've been involved with the zoning, the only issues I think we've really come up with, up against sometimes, has been height of the structure. For one reason or another, the idea of a residential zone is typically not 3 or 4 story buildings, but obviously on a college campus, that's much more likely to occur. I don't have any problem with what you're suggesting at all. I personally would be happy to sit in on any discussions along those lines.
Barry, I think one of the real challenges you have is every time there's a new president or a new executive committee of the board, the entities really have to endorse a master plan, because Stanley Martin had a phenomenal, I don't know if you've ever seen the master plan.
It's on my wall in my office.
Yeah, he developed it. The president came in and started selling all the properties, and then eventually when we had the flood in '85, a lot of properties came up for sale, so the college went back and bought a lot of the stuff they had sold 20 years or 10 years prior to that. So I think a master plan is great. It's not anything secret. I think that the college at some point in time, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, would like to have the area where the split rail fence is. That would make a huge positive impact as far as a residential college community, not to have a split rail fence right next to the campus. But, I know the Development Authority has been working on that long term to try to get some potential funding from the state to make that a positive change. But I'd be more than willing to help serve in any capacity also if that would be beneficial for you all.
You're right. It's I can tell you the present administration is totally committed to that. And you always have changes in leadership, and it may go away, but it's our best thinking at the time. And if we can set this up really with a forward progressive view towards where we think this thing's going to go, and you plan to it, it's a pathway. It could change. We've been trying to, and you know this, David, I mean, we've been trying to make this happen really in some kind of a pattern for probably that 50 years you're talking about. I know past administrations of college, yes. I'm not an advocate of selling property off at all. And if we're talking about acquisition of properties to develop what I consider sort of like a buffer zone, a zone for the college to say this is the college footprint, it's just not very good planning to start breaking it back.
Yeah, a lot of your land use is going to be in the flood zone anyway, so it makes more sense to have it as recreational or, beautification projects and so forth. I think the college, we've got about 20, 25 pieces of property within 3 or 4 years after the flood, and started tearing down structures that needed to be. I mean, there's a lot of just unbelievable damage, and you've continued that process, which I applaud you. Long
Yeah, we bought a number just in the last 3 or 4 years and torn some down.
Seems to be a
We
natural.
want it to be the college.
Well, it's a natural gateway to us having these, it's great to hear conversations about one thing about how the city is thinking about how it markets itself, the college is thinking about how it does this thing. We're all interested in the same thing, which is bringing people to spend money here and to stay in our hotels and do these things together. And I think this would be a great natural way to do it.
What's your next construction project, Barry?
We have on, this is, I don't know if this is public, so I'll probably get in trouble for talking about it.
Don't say it.
We do intend to build and this is part of our campus master plan, by the way. This actually came out in the master plan. Middleton Hall is not the proper place for admissions to be located. And we are anticipating that we're going to try to develop a better entrance welcome center concept for the college. And that should be coming your way pretty soon. And it's an exciting thing. It's going to be a nice place that prospective students would come to and they'd say, wow, this is nice. And the college is a beautiful place, and it'll look like it. But it's a little premature for me to show you a picture of it or talk too much about it. That's
Well,
probably
you know that anytime the college is involved in growth of the college, it's a real plus for us to sell Buckhannon to people and businesses that want to come here. So I applaud you guys for what you're doing up there, and of course, nobody likes Wesley any better than I do, and living a block and a half from us, you want to buy my house sometime, call me.
Stanley Martin's view was to have an unobstructed view of the river from the steps of the chapel, which unfortunately Camden Avenue apartment was built. Actually, Middleton Hall was built too, after that plan. And the extension of the dining hall.
Barry, I think this is something we can certainly get together and talk about. We'll kick it around here and make some contacts, and we would have to involve our planning commission. Any change in our ordinance requires recommendation of our city planning commission, and so we'll set to work on that.
Have you thought about involving the county commission also?
I'd be open to, any discussion. Really thought we was talking more about from the standpoint of the zoning aspect, but it's, there's a planning overlay to that for sure.
Well, you well know there's a financial impact anytime the college has purchased this property because it goes off the tax rolls. So there's a downside to it from the county standpoint. But I think they would, if they look at the long-term view, they would, support what you're doing.
But they won't talk about zoning.
Well, maybe they will someday.
I guess I always looked at it from the standpoint of revenue enhancement, revenue generation, what that might mean, more students, more,
So the county should talk about zoning with the completion of Corridor H as to what they want and don't want.
That's another story.
Barry,
I just want to make public.
Question here.
Is there any near future, any plans for doing anything to Central School?
I would have to say no at the current time. It's on our, obviously in the master plan. As far as space is concerned, we've been trying to do an assessment of the quality of that building structurally and systems-wise, and it would take a lot of work. And so I'm not going to say never. I think I know for sure that one side of the building is in better shape than the other side.
Well, I was going to say, I've had some people tell me they feel that there's not any good activity going on down there, and maybe that could be boarded up on that side or whatever.
Should be taken down completely.
Yeah, it's needed mowed several times this summer.
That's not college property.
That got mowed there?
It's an interesting location, because that is really where we're starting to get into whether it's, there are a number of other property owners in the area too. And is it residential or is it commercial? And then I think, I'm not going to talk for the city, but I remember some discussion about, the potential for development in that area because of some infrastructure issues at one point in time. It would be something we'd have. It's not on our immediate plan to do something with the building. I guess I'd hate to see us tear it down because maybe we would wind up doing something, but that's just my opinion.
Barry, thank you.
Thank you very much. I
We'll
appreciate it.
certainly take this into consideration. Going to jump down to the punch list here. Dennis Corse.
Thank you, Mayor. I had hoped to go first so that I could take the child to his dinner.
Yeah.
I have a real short announcement. In July of 2003, I started Mountain State Video Imaging. A little while later, I turned it over to Rodney. A year after that, then we acquired Channel 3 with it. Well, we are having our 10th anniversary this Saturday. That's day after tomorrow, but tomorrow for the viewers, at the Legion Hall at between 3 and 6. Refreshments will be served. Come, visit with us, tell us what you like about Channel 3, what you don't like about Channel 3, what you would like to see, what you don't want to see. Yeah, you're all welcome to come. All of you are invited, and the public too. And Jerry, please bring the car people. Okay? And that's my announcement. I'm going to bail out of here.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you, young man.
See you, Dennis.
This is our newest member of Mountain State Video Imaging. His name is Kyran, K-Y-R-A-N. He's my grandson. And he'll be 4 in December. When he was 2, we thought he was the smartest kid around because at that young age, he knew Latin. Well, that's what it sounded like to us.
Yeah.
As long as he knows that if you're paying, he should get the big Whopper.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, get him to his dinner.
Tell him goodbye.
Thank you. How's that?
I was telling the mayor to say goodbye, Donald.
There you go.
Next item on our agenda is the proclamation for Red Ribbon Week, and you have to say that slow or you'll mess up the first letter. And Tanya Zickafoos has asked to speak.
Good evening. I'm the counselor at Buckhannon Academy Elementary, and we take a lot of pride in our school being the only school in Upshur County within Buckhannon city limits. That's something that we talk to our students about a lot. And we were very lucky we were able to do a similar presentation to the Upshur County Commission this morning. And we were very proud that nearly every school in Upshur County was able to participate in that. But tonight, you guys are really lucky because it's just me and one of my favorite students here tonight with you. And I want to introduce him too. He's one of our 5th graders. His name's Caleb Rose. And he is here in costume for a purpose. It's not that it's almost his bedtime. We are here for a reason. And before we'd like to read the proclamation for Red Ribbon Week to you. And we have trouble saying that too. We have trouble saying it.
Slow that down.
Yeah, we practice it. And it's okay if we don't say it correctly. But Caleb and I wanted to talk to you guys about the purpose of Red Ribbon Week. It is our drug-free week in Upshur County schools, and that's a nationally recognized program that I'm not even certain how many years Upshur County has celebrated the program. But in addition to all of the special visitors we have and the traditions we have in our schools, we have theme days to celebrate different aspects of Red Ribbon Week. And our theme this year that you'll hear in the proclamation is A Healthy Me is Drug-Free. And so we're really focusing a lot this year on different aspects of improving our students and our staff's health, not just staying drug-free, but improving all aspects of our overall health. So Caleb and I would like to tell you what our daily themes are for the week. Do you want to read them? Well, I've got it right here. Oh, I got you covered. Okay, our Monday theme is...
Wear a red day, a healthy me for life.
Tuesday,
neon colors, drug-free means a brighter me. Wednesday, PJ day, follow your dreams drug-free. Thursday, workout clothes, let's get fit drug-free. Friday, team day, be on the right team drug-free.
Guess which day might be his favorite?
I was thinking Wednesday.
It's a good show. Right? It's my favorite. All the staff at our schools always say, we should do PJ Day more often. We kind of like that. But now I'd like to read the proclamation. And once we're finished with that, Caleb has some things to share with you guys. Okay? City of Buckhannon proclamation. Whereas Upshur County and the City of Buckhannon value the health and safety of all of our citizens. And whereas substance abuse is particularly damaging to one of our most valuable resources, our children, and is a contributing factor in the 3 leading causes of death for teenagers. accidents, homicides, and suicides. And whereas it is the goal of the Upshur County Red Ribbon Campaign and the City of Buckhannon to involve families, schools, businesses, churches, law enforcement agencies, and service organizations in all aspects of this campaign, and to establish an atmosphere that supports awareness, education, and ongoing initiatives to prevent illegal drug use. And whereas the Upshur County Red Ribbon Campaign theme promotes family and individual responsibility for living healthy, drug-free lifestyles without illegal drugs or the illegal use of legal drugs. And whereas there are many activities planned during the Red Ribbon Campaign in Upshur County, the theme this year is A Healthy Me is Drug-Free. Now therefore, the Mayor and City Council of Buckhannon do hereby proclaim October 21 through 25, 2013 as Red Ribbon Week in Buckhannon and in Upshur County, West Virginia, and urge all citizens to join in the week's activities and to work all year long to protect our community from the dangers of alcohol and other drugs.
I would entertain a motion to approve the proclamation.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And I have a real pretty signed copy that I'd like to present to this young man.
Okay. And Caleb has something to present to you too.
Caleb, I'll meet you halfway, Caleb. Shake hands. Very good. You can take that and you can lay it on the desk where you can keep it. And you can come up here and do whatever you're gonna do.
Caleb has Red Ribbon Week ribbons for you that we really encourage you to wear throughout the week. All students in Upshur County Schools will have a ribbon. All staff, we wear them faithfully through the week. And Caleb also has a pamphlet from the Red Ribbon Week campaign that describes the history of the program, as well as our daily themes and some of the other activities each school participates in through the week.
Mayor, could we get a photo op of you and the suit?
How do you want to do it?
Just right here, just maybe handing in the proclamation.
Okay.
Just lay it on the table for me.
Yeah, I'll let
There you go.
Thank you, Caleb.
Still get a photo. Can we get the ribbon too?
No, we haven't.
Come here, Caleb.
Caleb, who wants to get a picture with you?
What's
We'll hold your ribbons.
Yeah.
Shake my hands. Hold this. Hold it right up there. See the camera's looking at us over there. Hold it up there. Both hold it. I'll pass it. Smile. Big
I feel like I just won second place.
Tanya, Joyce, appreciate what y'all do. Really do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you more of us.
It's a worthy cause for sure.
We got a lot. A lot of weeks here or something.
In your package, you will note there are, based on the agenda, there are other proclamations that I've signed already. For your information, Freedom from Workplace Bullying, a General Aviation Appreciation Month, Christian Heritage Week, which is not listed on here, but yeah, it is too. And note that we've done that. Brings us to Department and Board Report. Michael?
Mayor, just a little bit of a brief report, but I want to catch on something that was brought to council last council meeting, and it was in your minutes. Did my quarterly report for this current fiscal year, but didn't want to get lost in the fact that included within that packet was your general fund financial report for the fiscal year ending 2012-13. Again, this is unaudited. We'll have our audit later on. But in closing out our books, there's a couple of highlights. And again, if you would like a copy of that, it's already been published in the paper. It should be in your minutes, but if you'd like another copy, see me after the council meeting, I'll be happy to provide that. But a couple of high points I think that are of note. The revenues for the end of the year for fiscal year 2012-13 were $3,484,653, again rounding up. The expenditures were $3,309,935, which is in excess of $174,718 in revenues over expenditures, which is something certainly you want to see. We did have transfers to the municipal stabilization fund, which indicated an amount of $499,804 less interest, and the fund balance for the end of the fiscal year was $1,236,982. Also, a report within that financial report was also our coal tax fund financial report, again unaudited for fiscal year 2012-13. I do want to make note that the revenues for the year in our coal tax fund were $18,174, that's revenues collected, and our expenditures were $88,500, which is again in excess of $9,674 revenues over expenditures, and our fund balance in coal tax ended the year at $51,332. Again, both funds are looking great. Again, this is an audited financial report. I do want to mention that with coal tax, unfortunately, and we had projected this in this current year's fiscal budget, our coal tax is about a third of the revenue that we expect to receive that we have in the past. Something to keep in mind. It's something we kind of had taken for granted, I guess, in a certain extent. It's helped us in some of those off years as we accumulate and accrue up money in coal tax to be able to do at least a street project. It's going to take a little bit more time to amass those funds to do something like that, given some of the restrictions on the coal industry in the state. Under old business, home rule update, I mentioned the last couple council meetings about trying to have something together for council. This council meeting under home rule, that draft is about 35% finished. I'm holding off because next week I'm going to be attending a West Virginia Managers Association meeting next Friday actually, and one of the subjects is going to be home rule. And to be honest with you, I'm just hoping to maybe cherry pick, hear what everyone else is doing around and compare notes, see if there's anything out there that may be of interest that we can include in our packet. But as of right now, we have a couple of items I think that's going to make our application unique. And depending on what comes out of the managers meeting next week, I hope to have something more definitive for you in November, because we want to get that application and council for review before submission, and hoping to submit that before the June 30th deadline. Another thing of note is just again a reminder to council, a reminder to the public in the paper. Of course, we've been publishing at the city government surplus auction. We partnered with the Upshur County Commission and the Airport Authority. That auction date is Saturday, November 2nd. Again, Saturday, November 2nd at 10 a.m. And again, that's going to be held at the Waste Garage on Mudlick. It was scheduled to be the week prior, but the state of West Virginia Department of Highways is having a large auction, and so we didn't want to conflict with that. So we'll be the week after that, again, November 2nd at 10. Other than that, I think there's a couple things that Dave McCauley is going to reference, and things that he and I have been working on, especially in relations to the cable franchise agreement. We had our assessment conversation with Cohen Law Group on Friday. I think we had some interesting things come out of that will help in our approach when we go to look at the cable franchise, and understand there's also been a scheduled meeting of the Cable Franchise Board and Council, which I believe is in your packet. So again, I did not want to make that go overlooked with our financial report, because that is critical for the fiscal year 2012-13. I know it's in your notes and in your minutes, but if you want a hard copy of that, or if you have any questions, please continue to review that and contact me if you have questions, or if you'd like another copy of that as well.
That's all the questions for Michael.
Michael, your transfer, non-mandatory transfer to the municipal stabilization fund, so it's just under $500,000.
Yeah, the transfer less interest date was $499,804.
Okay. So when you look at your revenues and expenditures, we really had a great year.
Yes, if you'll recall, actually, we had transferred 140 for that year, and that's just accumulating that 360 that we had previous year to indicate the total amount that was transferred in the stabilization fund. But long story short, yes, we had a good year.
It's good for future rainy day issues, right?
Well, it's always good when you have an excess of 174,718 revenues to expenditures. So,
Another question for Michael? Thank you, Michael. I noticed that we had another Wesleyan student sneak in back there. We traditionally have Wesleyan students stand, introduce yourself, give your name, where you're from, what your major is.
My name's Scott O'Donnell. I'm from Lichfield in England, and my major is business.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. Matt Gregory begged off the seating. Sam Ludlow.
Report on the sanitary board meeting this afternoon. Had a brief report on the NPDS permit. Again, we had a commitment from the Water and Waste Division Chief Scott Mandarola that they would provide us a letter outlining how they were handling our case, and that they were doing internal investigation, and that we were kind of off the hook until they had completed that, and if there were delays in their decision, it wouldn't affect the compliance schedule that they had imposed on us. And after several reminders that he was going to provide that letter, he did provide a document, but it was not a letter. It really didn't address Buckhannon at all, and we're rather disappointed in that response. We still feel that they are looking for some relief for Buckhannon, but they're not being very forthcoming. Had a little bit of news relative to the Weston Road sewer extension. It's been a fairly quiet activity, but the reason is that we're attempting to negotiate with CSX Railroad.
That's easy for you to say.
The red ribbon. And we had a flurry of communication with them when we first made the request, and then they've been pretty quiet, but within the last couple of weeks, they indicated that they're receptive to our offer or interest in making the acquisition of the old railroad grade, identified what was available for purchase, and indicated to us that they were in the process of doing assessments of the value. So we haven't established a price, so there's certainly no certainty that we will be making the purchase, but up until this point, there was no certainty that the railroad would offer the property, and that appears to have been done. Noted that we've completed the work on the sewer project at Northridge Development. Our part of that is done. We also have been working on the sewer extension to provide service to the Burton Phillips Farm. We made very good progress on the first phase of that. We're really up to a point where we're going to be crossing the Little Sand Run Road. We have encountered some fairly difficult conditions there with rock. We're probably looking at a pretty highly qualified boring contractor to be involved in that project. We've also been working on a couple of projects at the plant, another drainage pump station to improve some performance of some of our unit processes, and an upgrade to our grit removal facilities. And we've been making substantial progress on both of them. However, we've run into some difficulties there as well with rock condition, and we had to rent a piece of equipment to hammer and break up the rock. And then we also noted that we've had a sewer failure It's really occupied quite a bit of our time over the last couple of weeks. It's actually on Wesleyan property, but it's a major interceptor sewer from South Buckhannon that runs to the East Main Street pump station. We've spent quite a bit of our time and have managed to control the sewage flows, so that there have been no spills as a result of this blockage, and the sewer line was completely blocked. And we continue to do that management of the flow, and are hopeful that we can keep it that way. Conditions where we have a lot of extraneous flow may make it more difficult to manage it. And we're making efforts to make a repair, but it's in again, difficult conditions. It's pretty deep, and high water table and running sand, very, very difficult construction conditions, but we're working on that.
Do the current heavy rains last today and
Would have an impact, yes. But we've set up pumping arrangements that, and I don't know particularly what occurred during the rain this afternoon. I was at the sanitary board meeting. That's all.
Other question for Sam?
Sam, on the water treatment issue, we've been dealing with that for quite a while. Is it the EPA that's putting the pressure on you, or what?
State DEP.
But is that also federal? There's any federal issues involved?
Well, EPA provides guidance and regulation to West Virginia, DEP,
but it's
DEP.
It's been quite a while, hasn't it, that this has been?
Well, we were issued our permit in June of, I think it went into effect the 1st of July of 2012. And it imposed conditions that we objected to and appealed. And we settled our appeal in February of 2013, but one of the conditions of the appeal was that we could present evidence to show why we shouldn't have to comply with one of the provisions. And that's been ongoing ever since.
And you're saying they're doing an internal investigation of their response
Yes.
to us?
Our expert presented them with a procedure different than the one that they used. And they, in consultation with EPA, are investigating whether that's applicable, and are trying to calibrate that to see if it's a theoretical formula for establishing the DO levels, and they're trying to generate field data that would confirm or prove ineffective the formula that our expert presented to them. So we've kind of put them in a position where they're having to evaluate statewide a different procedure for imposing these limits on small towns, on small rivers.
And if we got an adverse decision from them, what recourse do we have at that point in time?
Well, we have the opportunity to submit a permit modification request. They haven't refused to. We're negotiating on what we can submit as a permit modification. We wanted to work with them to arrive at limits that we would request the change, that they would agree to it before we actually submitted it. But if they don't agree with it, we can still submit the request for that change. And if they deny it, we can appeal it. And if we lose the appeal, we could go to court. So we do have recourse, but those steps are difficult and quite expensive.
But it'd be even more expensive if we have to comply with what they're suggesting we need to do.
Probably, yes.
I mean, I find it very, with the experience I've had on some of these things, I don't have a lot of hope that we're going to get a good decision from them.
Well, they've made comments to the effect that they never expected us to make the investment in facilities. And we don't, and our expert advisors don't understand what that means, because if you have a limit that your current facilities can't meet, and they don't expect you to build new facilities, then is there an expectation that you will violate the permit limits? That's just kind of very puzzling.
Yeah, it's been puzzling.
And this is one of what's unfortunate, in my opinion, this is happening everywhere with overregulation and interpretation of what it means. That's all. So, good luck.
Well, they're trying very hard to protect our waterways.
Yeah, I understand.
And there's some, I mean, I'm very glad of that.
Yeah.
But I think we've presented information that what they have proposed was kind of cookbook and really didn't apply to Buckhannon and Buckhannon's situation, and so wasn't necessary.
It was a cookie cutter.
Thank you, Sam. Tom or Kelly? Tom's standing up. Water Department.
It's a Tom show. From the Water Board, last week we discussed with them a need we had over on Morton Avenue to move a meter barrel out closer to the state right of way for better access for maintenance and meter reading from our end. The reason I bring that to your attention, while we were there, the crew took the opportunity during that process to install a couple of valves to better allow us to isolate sections of line over there for other purposes we may have, where it would be for hydrant flushing or future development or whatever. But we took an opportunity with that and installed two 6-inch valves in that line. That was an ongoing project they've been working on. The taps at the North Ridge project have been complete, the water taps. All of our water commitments there are finished. We completed hydrant flushing on schedule. I believe there's a few private hydrants yet to flush. Other than that, we have all the easily accessible hydrants maintenance and flushed on schedule. On my side, we took a employee out of probationary period. He was in a 6-month probationary period and hired him full-time. The Water Board approved that. That allowed me to come up to full staff, so I'm fully staffed now at the water plant. I'm appreciative of that. In September, we had one more water issue. I'm not sure where that was at. It was at the same place, Morton Avenue. That was in response to the work we were doing in that area. And then we have a couple of public service districts we've been negotiating with the last couple of years to help bring us in compliance with health department requirements for backflow prevention. There had been some discussion, maybe we could trade off some customers or whatever. It appears as though some of those negotiations or processes we wanted to do may not work out, so we're still working on that and hopefully have those resolved in a timely manner. But that's all I have.
Questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom. Dave McCauley.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of fairly substantial things tonight to discuss, and then just a handful of quick updates. Last meeting, I provided council with the current draft, and I don't know that Clarksburg has done anything more with it in the last couple of weeks, the drug house ordinance. Since receiving that draft, I've conducted a good chunk of additional research, and the first drug house ordinances actually started to spring up in the United States in the late 80s. I was a bit surprised to find that out because we don't have anything like this really, and virtually any city in West Virginia. I guess that's a good thing, that we don't have the problems that the big cities have had previous to us. But the good part about that is these ordinances have been around long enough that they have been challenged in the courts. And the courts have overwhelmingly approved both state and municipal efforts to introduce the type of legislation that Clarksburg and now Buckhannon is considering. I sent last night or night before last, I can't remember, 4 or 5 links to all of you to take a peek at, and I've printed out some of the more short but substantial ones. And I'd just like to share these with you briefly. One in particular that I thought was very interesting. It comes from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and this is actually something that was presented at the United States Mayors Conference, the USCM, United States Conference of Mayors. This is the Fort Wayne model, and it goes all the way back to the 1990s and kind of gives a summary as to the effectiveness of this ordinance. If you indulge me for just a couple of quick minutes, I think there's some stuff in here, dated as some of this data is, it just supports how productive and helpful these ordinances can be. In 1993, neighborhood leaders and city officials in Fort Wayne had had enough. They were determined to find a way to close down the dozens of drug houses that plagued the city. Residents worked with elected officials, police officers, and other city staff to develop a new law that would help solve the problem. In late 1993, the Fort Wayne City Council passed and Mayor Paul Helmke signed into law the drug house ordinance. Here's how it works. Citizens report suspected illegal drug activity by calling the Drug House Ordinance Hotline, which is staffed in Fort Wayne full-time by a retired 23-year veteran police officer. The information is kept confidential, compiled, and then turned over to the Fort Wayne Police Department's vice and narcotics detectives. Detectives then attempt to make a drug buy at the suspected drug house or arrest someone on the property for possession. Once an arrest is made, police notify the landlord that they are renting to someone suspected of conducting illegal activities on their property. The landlord must begin eviction proceedings within 30 days of receiving written notice from the police department. If the landlord does not comply, he or she may be fined up to $2,500 for each day. The tenant is permitted to stay without receiving a formal eviction notice. I would note that the maximum that we can assess through our municipal court is only $500, but that's still pretty substantial if you regard each day of the activity as a separate offense. In conjunction with enforcement of the drug house ordinance, the Fort Wayne Police Department offers a landlord education awareness program. This training program provides landlords with guidelines for maintaining properties and screening potential renters. The guidelines help landlords prevent drug dealers and other criminals from moving into their rental units. The Fort Wayne Police Department also provides landlords with a list of warning signs that signal the possibility of drug dealing on their property. This would include such things as, and I don't know what goes into making meth, but I hear about Sudafed and all the attempts to regulate that, and 2-liter bottles and certain aerosol cans and things like that as being, so that's the kind of thing that they do in Fort Wayne. The Fort Wayne Police Department also provides the landlords with a list of warning signs and signal. The Education Awareness Program has created a partnership between the police department and responsible landlords. They work together to eliminate drug houses in Fort Wayne. Efforts to enforce the drug house ordinance and educate landlords are paying off. During 1994, the Fort Wayne Police Department shut down 80 drug houses. One reopened after being closed, but it was promptly shut down again. All others remained closed after the dealers operating them were either jailed or left town. Enforcement of the ordinance in 1995 resulted in the closure of 110 houses and the eviction of the residents occupying those houses. During 1996, 107 houses were closed, and in 1997, the Fort Wayne Police Department is closing houses at a record pace. So you get the idea. That's from the United States Conference of Mayors website, but telling this story very recently of the Fort Wayne experience with the drug house ordinance. Another one that I thought was interesting is comes from Sand Springs, Oklahoma, And it's not a very big place either. Not all these places have, hundreds of thousands of people like the Portland and Fort Wayne models that I've given you. But Sand Springs, Oklahoma, this is their ordinance, the synopsis of it that was enacted just in February of 2010, 3.5 years ago. Sand Springs has joined a number of other communities in Oklahoma fighting back against the effects of homes contaminated by methamphetamine manufacturing on future occupants. Property owners who discover that methamphetamine or other noxious, hazardous, or toxic substances have been manufactured or processed on their properties must notify Sand Springs Police and have the contaminated area tested and remediated by a nationally certified cleanup firm. The process would also be implemented should police find such conditions. City Council adopted an ordinance outlining the new regulations during its February 8 meeting. The ordinance's emergency clause allows it to become effective on Sunday, February 14. Like other communities in Oklahoma, Sand Springs is taking steps to protect our citizens from the dangers of methamphetamine. In addition to the harm caused by the drug itself, the manufacture of meth often leaves harmful contaminants and residues in the houses, buildings, or properties where the activities occurred, said Assistant Police Chief Mike Carter. The second page of this Sand Springs, Oklahoma, talks about their other ordinance that they use in tandem with this, which is the drug house ordinance. Buckhannon took its first step really last winter when we adopted that comprehensive bath salts ordinance, which places responsibility for at least commercial activities, selling bath salts and things of that sort, back upon the landlord. So if we are to consider these other ordinances that have worked in Sand Springs, Fort Wayne, Portland, Oregon, it's a natural progression. I was hopeful that Matt was going to be here this evening, but Chief Gregory and I talked about this last week, and I asked him if he had had a chance to look at Clarksburg's ordinance, and he had, and he was very complimentary about what Clarksburg is considering, and remarked that it would just provide his department with yet another tool in their arsenal to combat these activities. I think I may have left the impression, and I didn't mean to last time, that I was somehow, by advancing this, picking on landlords in Buckhannon. Not the case. We're trying to protect landlords. We're trying to protect their properties. A lot of these drug activities will result in potentially permanent contamination of these places that the landlords own. So if we can more quickly and readily identify these kinds of problems, as would be justified by ordinance enactment, we can partner with landlords to help them evict these problematic tenants that are really a danger to our entire community. So I would hope that we will continue to look at this, and at some point in the next couple of 3 meetings, I'd really like some guidance from the council as to whether you would like me to commence a draft ordinance. There are a number of things in Clarksburg's ordinance that I think we can borrow from, but yet improve. And these other places around the country that have already passed these ordinances, some communities having them in effect for many, many years, maybe steal some things out of their ordinances as well. In the going on 31 years I've done this, I've never really had an original thought. I steal stuff from other places. So.
You sound like CJ.
Yeah. So that's...
Personally, I think you should go ahead and start on these. I don't know why we have to wait. We shouldn't wait on other cities to do this. Let's get going. I hate drugs, as I've said many times before. I hate the effects they have on the community and our children. And if we can start this and get it going, David, I think we should do that. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but that's my feelings on it.
Are we prohibited by state law to have to give them 30 days notice, David? Can we, I mean, if they identify it as a place that's making meth, can't they be evicted immediately, arrested and evicted?
Dave, there are, some ordinances are not month to month, clearly. Some ordinances are by the quarter, by 6-month increments, by the year. Some commercial leases may be for a period of years. And generally speaking, when it comes to eviction, there are different time periods that must be accorded to tenants depending upon what's in their lease. I think this is another one of those situations that if we work with our delegates, the state legislature these are the kind of things that really should be coming at us from the state level. That notwithstanding proviso in that tenant-landlord chapter article of the code, notwithstanding the notice that must normally be accorded in the event that, those are the kind of things that I think we could work with Bill Hamilton on to.
Well, it's something we could include in our home rule.
Absolutely, very good. That's a good point, Mayor. That's another one of those perks that we could try to address in the home rule application. That's an excellent point.
We control our own destiny more with home rule.
More so than what we can now, that's for sure.
Well, I agree with Ron's point, and I think the only thing we'd have to determine as a council, maybe by the next meeting or time to review a little bit of this, is which of these directions. There's obviously a couple ways to get at this, or maybe all of them are suitable, or some of them are. I think it's the only thing we probably have to determine together.
When we started talking about bath salts last holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, it took, we chatted about it for 3 or 4 months before we came up with what we thought was the final finished product. And that's the kind of time frame I think we'd be talking about with this one. This isn't something that I'd have ready at the next meeting and say, here, this is a done deal. I think there is great utility in having public discussions about these things. I mentioned last time my telephone discussion with Martin Howe and his receptiveness to doing sort of a regional consortium and bringing mayors and police chiefs and city managers together and letting them share the experiences that they're having problem-wise in their communities. And Adam Gissy has received all kinds of accolades for his excellent policeman over in Lewis County. I mean, I'd love to hear him talk for 10 or 15 minutes about some of his war stories already. I think that we all become stronger, and we're really in this together. The enterprise that, I don't want to use the word that we chased from Buckhannon, but they did close up shop just about the time we were affecting that ordinance, and they headed to Weston. And the folks over in Lewis County took the Buckhannon ordinance, modified it to suit their purposes, and they adopted the same thing, and those guys are operating, I understand, down in Glenville now.
Yeah, they closed shop over there too.
Down in Glenville?
No, in West.
Yeah,
They
never
opened it
up. That's right. But my question,
before they started.
my question would be is, what is their clientele? Are there people from Buckhannon and Weston now driving to Glenville to get this contraband and bringing it back here and using it? So if we regionally work together to do more, we can chase the problem further and further away from Buckhannon.
And I agree 100%. I think you should move on this as quickly as you can, David. But I made the comment last meeting that we really need to have a very, very comprehensive, proactive war on this whole area of drugs. And one of the issues you're going to have if you become much more effective with law enforcement and prosecution, it's going to have an impact on the county in respect to the cost of putting these people away too. I mean, that's one of the issues we have in our country is that.
Dave, you're entirely right. And I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and you heard a lot about the drug culture in that period of time. And I don't know whether it's just because I'm an old coot now, but I have never seen anything quite like what we are experiencing right now as far as an across-the-culture problem. Places like Buckhannon used to be fairly, for the most part, immune to some of the drugs that we're dealing with now in our community. I mean, there's always been some marijuana and stuff like that, but the extent of the prescription pill problem, heroin, cocaine, LSD, I mean, some days we wish all we had to worry about was pot and bath salts because the hard drugs are here in our community. I sent a chart to some of you the other day. I really should have sent it to the entire council. I don't think I did. And West Virginia is in that about 30th range as far as percentage of the population that is now using illegal drugs. It's in the neighborhood of 8.9%. Now think about that. That's not far from 1 in 10 people. And if we got 6,000 people in Buckhannon, that means at any given point in time, there's pushing 600 of them that are using illegal drugs. It's a horrific problem, and it cuts across the board. It's not the lower socioeconomic folks that are exclusively touched by this. It's top to bottom. So anyway, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I'll start to work on some things and report back soon about those.
David, one part of that, and I agree with all the comments so far, one part of that you didn't talk about is the damage it does to the structures. One of the concerns that I have is, and we've had several cases within city limits where a particular home has been used one way or another to make meth or what have you. That stays with the house, and it doesn't disappear. They typically have to go in and remove the drywall, remove the carpeting, whatever it happened to be in that area, and replace it. You can't just clean it. It won't clean. Consequently, the people that move into that home, perhaps a rental property, the next time or the time after that or the time after that may still be susceptible to those chemicals that are in that home unless it has been cleaned. So one of the things the Oklahoma on the second page talks about is requiring occupancy permits for any home that is re-rented, so that somebody goes in and tests to see whether or not those chemicals are present. And if so, they're remediated before anybody's allowed to live there. The other thing would be moving of mobile homes into a community, whether they be new or used. You know, if they come in from some area, they may have been damaged beyond use in some other area, but you know, somebody might want to get a good deal and bring one in. So those need to be tested as well. But I think there's a whole host of things here that we should be paying attention to protect our own citizens and those people that may want to live in the area, in addition to taking a look at the folks that are actually creating the problem to begin with.
Dave, sounds like we want you to continue.
Got that idea.
I shall do that.
Jerry,
I was, on the, like the rental situation, what I was gonna say, that house should be condemned to rental until it is proven, and I don't know who should be proven that there's no chemicals left there at all. You know, if it's cleaned up in some way or another.
Well, that's what it's about with an occupancy permit after a known event.
And we don't want the material in our landfill either. I mean, it has to be handled separately. We don't want to, just because somebody goes in there and cleans it up, we don't want them taken out.
Be the same as an asbestos disposition.
Exactly, exactly.
Got done it right.
And you couldn't burn it.
No.
Dave, anything else?
TV cable. We're having a combined meeting of the TV cable board and city council Monday. This is an oddball time. We agreed to it because Mr. Kellerman it was easiest for his schedule, and we've been trying to find a time that he could come up. It's 5:30 right here in council chambers on Monday. Mr. Clemens has posted the notice about the special meeting. The agenda has been prepared. There are two major items, but there are really several mini items, if you will, that I think we ought to be thinking about discussing with the Suddenlink representatives. It's timely because Suddenlink is requesting a fairly substantial right-of-way from the city right on the periphery, on the fringe of our cemetery, going up to Cemetery Hill, where of course they have their head end for their operations. You know, I've kind of balked and been intentionally slow in saying, yes, I'm going to recommend to the mayor and council that right-of-way be approved, because it seems to me that there are things that we want addressed by the cable company. There are issues that need to be answered by the cable company. So if we kind of tie this in with the soon expiring franchise agreement, soon being a relative term, we have 14 months left on the current Suddenlink agreement, questioning them about things like what are their intentions as far as offering new services, better services, improving downtime, those kinds of things. So anybody out there in the community, this is a public meeting. If you want to take up again, as I continue, I've got, there's a circle of people that contact me very regularly about things like not having Channel 4 out of Pittsburgh, those kinds of things. That's the time to show up and let Mr. Cullen and Mr. Brown hear the complaints, and it also give the council and the TV cable board, sort of a barometer as to what the hot pressing issues and problems are with our TV cable provider.
Would they, I think last time you brought this up, you mentioned even a fee for the
Well, we have granted rights of ways in my time here to the gas company, to the electric company, to the telephone company. We have franchise agreements with all of those utilities. We receive fees regularly from all those utilities. If they need a piece of property from us that they're going to encumber with the right-of-way, the city traditionally has received consideration payment for that, and there's been no proposal by the cable company to offer us anything as far as payment.
What fees to receive from the cable company?
5% of their gross receipts from cable. We've been told that
Television.
television cable. We're supposedly not entitled to collect any fees relative to either their providing internet services or telephony, telephone service. I take some umbrage with that. If that's what the federal law in fact is, and I believe it is, it really places the cable company at an advantage with its competitors, the Verizons and Frontiers of the world, because they got to pay us to have those rights of ways for the telephone. And now we've got the cable company basically competing with them and not paying for the telephone. So that's another issue I'd like to take up with Mr. Cullen and Mr. Brown on Monday. Is might be some fees out there that one way or another we can.
That's probably the most advantageous right away for them too, I imagine.
Well, it's only.
It's only.
I mean, Mr. Hollins looked at it and believes that their request is a reasonable one for what they want to do. I do have a little issue with granting a perpetual right-of-way to a head end that is tied in with their franchise agreement. They lease the top of that hill, a portion of it, from the city. And the lease term is basically tied into the franchise agreement. So I don't want to give something that runs with the land forever and ever, and if they're out of business 5-10 years down the road, and they move the head end someplace else, I don't want that right-of-way to encumber our cemetery operations.
Yeah. What if we didn't approve our franchise with them?
The federal government, as well as the West Virginia Public Service Commission, the applicable rules and regulations make it difficult to not renew a cable provider. That's the fact of the matter. Unless you can show that they are technically not up to speed with FCC guidelines, it's very difficult to justify within the realm of the law non-renewal. So I've got to be very upfront with you about that. Yeah. Now, does that mean that we can't encourage competitors to take a look at us? The problem is while you can't grant an exclusive franchise, as you've heard me say before, the likelihood of getting another major provider like Comcast or Time Warner excited about a relatively rural place like Upshur County, where we have a total of 8,000 or 9,000 customers, are they going to compete with the millions that it's going to take in capital to establish their own fiber optics system? Are they going to invest millions and millions of dollars for half a pie? Probably not. As a practical matter, Suddenlink does very well in these rural communities because they have, other than the satellite providers, Dish Network, guys like that, they have a near monopoly on cable service.
Well, I keep getting the same story when I call Suddenlink to complain about, for instance, Channel 4 is not broadcast in HD. And they say, well, they just don't do that at the station there. And but other cities have Channel 4 in HD.
You're right.
We don't.
Charleston does, and Parkersburg does, Morgantown does. And once again, you're going to get me all fired up here, Mr.
Well, good. I want you to be fired up. I want you to take them to test.
If we were paying double the money for a Whopper or a Big Mac in Buckhannon, what they're paid in Charles or Parkersburg. We pay the same thing those people do. We ought to get the same service. And that's long been more than a pet peeve, it's been a major complaint of mine. So, anyway, enough of my rant. A couple other quick things and I'll shut up. The intergovernmental agreement, I was just notified by Scott Barnett. I emailed him this morning. I had a little Post-it note on my computer to do that before tonight's meeting, and he did reply this afternoon. It has been approved by the Attorney General's office. He hasn't made his way down to the Capitol building to pick it up. He was going to do that tomorrow. So it has been approved by the Attorney General. Not as though it was a major thing, but it is one of those last check marks, things we had to check off before we move further with the Armory project. Cemetery issue that I mentioned at the last meeting, a letter has been sent on that. Been working with Mr. Holland on 3 different water right-of-way matters, all of which I think are going to be resolved okay. And our electrical inspection ordinance is fully effectuated this Saturday, October 19th. Mr. Clemens was working on some forms as people begin to come in next week to secure their new electrical permits. So I assume we'll be ready to go with the new improved system.
Certainly will.
Okay. That's all I have unless you all have questions.
Questions for Dave?
And now that the electrical ordinance is going to be implemented, let's start working on a building permit. And get that taken. And did we ever get a question as to the electrical inspector who inspects his work?
No, I haven't gotten the answer to that yet, Mr. Gill. But we'll.
I could shed a little light on that. This electrical inspection is a legal document, and if Mr. Martini does work and signs off on it as the inspector, that's not inappropriate because it carries the same kind of problem for him personally as it does if he signs off on a job at Rich's house and it's not right. His license is at risk. He is licensed as an inspector. And
yeah, I understand that, but I still think it's rather improper for a person to inspect his own work and be able to sign off on it. It's not good policy for anyone to do that. So I'd hope that we could maybe get a reciprocal agreement with another municipality or somebody, whereas, if Mr. Martini has some work here, that they could come inspect his work and perhaps he could go inspect theirs. But it's just not a good policy to inspect your own work. Shoot, if I graded my own papers through college, I'd have graduated magna cum laude. But, that's my view on it. Yeah.
I thought you did.
that's how you got through. Okay. Thank you. Correspondence, in your package, there's several pages relative to the slide gate operator for the water plant, and that's been awarded. And you got notice from Michael about the surplus auction November 2nd. You have in your packet a request from Michael Calger to serve on the city's zoning board of appeals, and we are pretty quick to grab anybody who volunteers, so I would recommend him as a member of the zoning board of appeals and entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Question. Did you contact the person that contacted me and I called you about that was interested in serving on this?
I did not get in touch with her.
Okay.
Can we act, is this really on the agenda? Can we act?
We have a letter of request from Michael Calver on the agenda, and his request is to be a member of the city zoning board of appeals.
How long is the term for?
It's open-ended.
Open-ended.
Not?
I'd have to double check that, I'm not sure. Have to go back.
I think there is a term, but I can't tell you what it is. 3 years.
Does he really want to throw himself into that briar patch?
That's what he says.
I read the letter too.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Motion made and second. Discussion? All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Welcome aboard, Michael.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Appreciate your willingness. Consent agenda.
Openings for other things, don't we?
I meant to state, yeah, we do have some openings, but particularly, we have an opening on the TV cable board, and we're planning to meet, and if somebody will contact me, I will make that appointment and let council approve it retroactively, but we're meeting Monday night. And if there's anybody who wants to serve, call me.
They only meet once every 3 or 4 years, right?
Well, they don't meet often, but I think it's an important undertaking.
Well, it is.
As we're getting down into renegotiating the lease, it's going to be, there's going to be some time involved.
Well,
in
there's
some important decisions.
Is there a prohibition against serving on more than one board?
There is for some boards.
For some boards.
Some boards, you're only allowed to serve on that board and no other. There's other restrictions
Okay.
on some based upon political affiliation. There's some based upon state code and some based on local
Okay,
ordinance.
what about the zoning appeals board?
To my well, it depends what the other board is.
TV cable?
No, you could be on both.
Okay, then,
As far as I know, I'd want to
Okay.
reserve, double check
okay.
that, but I
I'll
don't
check
think
on it
there's any
because, you know,
restriction.
Marilyn was appointed to this board, zoning and appeals, Marilyn Walton, and I had thought that she told me that she was told she couldn't serve on the TV cable board too. Perhaps she'd like to serve on both of them, and that would take care of that problem.
We'll check that.
Yeah.
So we'll give her a call.
Oh, Mike in his letter also had some statements about he'd like to help with the city's website. I
Yeah,
believe.
I didn't take that into consideration. I think Rich would
Well,
work
just,
with
you know,
anybody on that, but I thought that the order of business here would have been to be handle this zoning board of appeals.
His letter, we considered the whole
Yeah,
thing.
but that's not an appointment.
No, it's a request. We'd like to do that.
Well,
I'm glad to help however I can.
Sure, and we
need to help
appreciate
on
that.
anything.
Appreciate that. Brings us to our consent agenda. Approval of minutes of the regular meeting of October 3rd, special meeting October 15th, building and wiring permits and payment of bills. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Comments? Ron?
Nope.
Tom?
Nothing tonight.
Rich?
Just remember your meeting Monday night.
Monday night,
5:30.
5:30, still be daylight this time of year. John?
I promised Laura I'd ask about CPP and it's another thing.
That's one we need from,
We
I
do.
believe, a
That's
council
great.
member or
Yeah.
city appointed.
A city appointment to the CVB. Looking for someone interested in that as well.
I know a couple people who are
Good.
interested in surveying.
Give us a holler.
Submit some names.
Tell them to contact us. Anything else, John?
Nope, that's it.
Sam?
We still need somebody to be on the board for the Stockard Youth Center. Anybody's interested?
Yep.
Dr. Hughes Center, there's an opening.
Some openings on the planning commission. Several.
Why don't we put a list next council meeting?
Yeah, we'll put that together.
List or publish.
Maybe get it out to the paper before that even.
Speaking of paper, welcome back.
Thank you.
She's just passing through.
No,
No, I'm
You're permanently back?
they, John Wickline resigned, and so they transferred me.
She's
I'm the
a bureau
Upshur Bureau
chief.
Chief now.
You're here with us again.
I
Well, very
am.
good.
I am.
Then welcome home.
Thank you.
Dave?
I just would remind the citizens, be careful of telemarketers, and when they're asking for donations, most of the time, the people that they're representing or trying to benefit get very, very little percentage of what you're going to donate.
Be safe on Halloween night, too.
Have fun. Be safe. Anybody else out there got anything
I'll
to
be
offer?
trick-or-treating.
Then we're adjourned. Thank y'all.